What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. On today's video, we have a 2011 Toyota Prius. And on today's video, we're going to take a look inside the inverter. Well, not actually just take a look, but we're actually going to be replacing some parts inside. So if you guys want to interested in seeing what's inside the inverter, how the rebuild process is like, stay tuned. As you can see, the customer's complaint was my hybrid system was not ready on. Check hybrid system malfunction light is on in the dash. No matter what you do, it would not ready on. So before I start my repair, first thing I do is apply the emergency brake, disconnect the 12-volt battery. Now this is for demonstration purposes only because you're going to be dealing with high voltage in the hybrid system. So I don't recommend anybody trying this repair at home. But if you're ever in a situation where you're wondering what is my mechanic doing to my Prius when I take it to the dealer to have this IPM repair done, at least you have an idea. I'm going to remove my service grip plug. And I like to keep it on the windshield because it reassures me that I already removed it and it's in a place where I can see it. So first thing I'm going to do is blow off all the dust particles and debris off the inverter so I can kind of clean it up and keep it debris free. So as I start removing components, stuff don't fall inside. We have a couple clips we want to remove from the front shield on top of the radiator support, because it's going to be blocking one of the bolts that I need to remove the inverter assembly. Now I'm going to remove the top cover you see there, a few 10 millimeters going around. I'm going to need to expose the hybrid battery plug going to it so I can check the voltage to make sure everything is powered down. There you go. Once I remove the cover, I'm going to get my voltmeter out. This is where you really want to make sure it's powered down. Always double check. So even though I know I removed the service plug, I'm going to check these two terminals right there. That's coming from directly from the hybrid battery itself. So I'm going to set my voltmeter to voltage, and I'm going to check these two terminals to make sure I get 0 volts coming out. And as you can see, it's 0 volts. The system is already powered down. So at this point, you're pretty much good to go. So now after I did my check, I'm going to temporarily reinstall the cover back. Just because I don't want anything falling in there while I'm removing the other harness and components around it. I don't want to risk anything falling in there. Like I said, I'm not going to be demonstrating every single thing that I'm doing. This is just for I'm not going to be showing or going over everything. I just want to give you guys an idea. Because to do this job, Toyota requires you to be hybrid expert. They don't just let anybody tackle on anything hybrid related or any work. On the Prius, yeah, you can do oil changes and do tires, but when it comes to hybrid batteries, inverter repairs, as you see here, you need to be hybrid certified. And to be hybrid certified, you need to have a few ASCs, including electrical, complete a few online courses by Toyota, and go to their in-person class for a few days. I think it's about 3 or 4 days to complete their training. And they provide us with these special insulated high voltage tools. It's a 10 millimeter socket with a 3/8 ratchet. And that's what we're going to be using to remove the bolts inside the inverter case. See these 10 millimeter bolts inside? One's coming from the hybrid battery. The other two you see towards the right there, that's for your MG1, MG2 going into the transmission. And like I said, this is a very dangerous repair procedure if you're not familiar with the hybrid systems. Now you see I got all the bolts removed. Now I'm gonna make my way to remove the outer 10 millimeter bolts that's kind of holding it on to the case itself. Zip it off. Like I said, just for demonstration purposes only. So now we got the big battery plug out. Well, we got the few MG1, MG2 plugs out. Now, this one right here, this is going to your compressor. This is your compressor plug. You would think there would be the compressor would be powered off with a 12 volt, but it's powered on with the IPM high voltage. Now I'm going to remove the coolant hose going to the inverter. Should be about two. One on the left side, you see I just removed there. And then there's one on the driver's side right here. Some coolant gonna leak out, but it's not gonna be much. So you could choose to drain it first or just pop out the hose and then just do a good cleaning after you're done. Yeah, I just remove the hose and let everything drip to the floor. And then I'm gonna, at the end, just blow it off anyway. Now behind the inverter, there's gonna be a 10mm nut behind this case right here. Be careful you don't miss that. You're gonna need to remove that so you can remove the inverter assembly. Now the good thing about this repair is it looks expensive because it is, but the Toyota has a customer confidence program, 23TE03, and apparently there's about 918,000 Prius vehicles from 2010 through 2015 being affected. So if you own one of these Prius and you're having a issue with your IPM, bring it to the dealer because this repair, it says from Toyota, this coverage will be offered for 20 years with no mileage limitation from the date of first use. So pretty much 20 years from the date of first use. So you got a long time with no mileage limitation. So you can't beat that. And the DTCs it's looking for is DTC P0A94, P0A1A, P324E, and P3004. So if we scan it and we see these codes in the IPM, you're in luck because Toyota will be covering this repair for you free of charge. Even if your Prius have 200,000 miles, if it's to 2010 through 2015, you're in luck. So if you have a 2010, you'll be covered at least all the way up to 2030. Like I said, the customer confidence program said 20 years with no mileage limitation. So here you have the inverter outside of the car, guys. And I think it's pretty good because this is an expensive repair, and for them to still be covering it for the customers with no mileage limitation, you can't beat that, man. That's why you can't go wrong with Toyota. So if you have a hybrid system that we're not ready on, don't be afraid to bring it in because you might be in luck. And if it's one of these, then Toyota will repair it and cover the charges for you for free. Now I'm going to take these little grommets out. That kind of goes on the coolant inlet and outlet pipe. It'll make more sense once I start separating it. I'm going to get these bolts around to separate the inverter. Got a couple caps right here that we're going to need to remove because inside of them they have 10mm bolts inside that's holding a few terminals in. There's another one on this side I'm going to need to remove. Now I'm going to zip off the 10mm bolts inside. And I'm not really going in depth on the repair procedure because I don't recommend you trying this at home. I got to keep putting that disclaimer out. So now I'm just going around the inverter case, removing all the bolts on the outside because I want to remove that upper case. It's going to split into two. And we have a special tool here from Toyota that allows us to kind of put tension on it to help separate it because they don't give you much room to pry it open. So this special tool kind of helps put some tension while I go around with a flat chisel, and I'm just gonna hammer it through to kind of crack it open. And because it's aluminum, it can crack easy. You don't want to crack the aluminum housing. So that's why that special tool comes in handy. It allows to kind of keep that tension to kind of help it spread open. And as I'm going inside with my flat chisel to kind of break off the sealant, the sealant bond that's holding it tight. All the bolts are removed, but you just want to take your time going each corner at a time. With that special tool, it helps a lot. Now I'm able to remove the upper case, and this is what it looks like right here. All that sealing around it, I'm gonna have to clean that off. You'll see later in the video. So this is the upper case of the inverter. This is how it looks inside. Keep in mind, as you can see, there's a few 10mm bolts that's already on. So when you're installing it, you want to be mindful that you install those first before you put that case on, because once you put that case on, it won't be possible to install those 10mm bolts. So some are exposed, they have no bolts. And then like you see these, you want to have the bolts in there. These are the parts we're going to be installing, all from Toyota, brand new. And all this is free, guys. Like the customer confidence program said, 20 years, no mileage limitation. That's why you can't beat Toyota, man. You cannot go wrong. For a car to be 15 years old with 200,000 miles and you're still getting all these things for free, it goes to assure you that customers, Toyota really care about their customers. And they do sell a lot of Prius. Maybe they're trying to retain those customers from going to other manufacturers and leaving the Toyota brand, but you can't go wrong. We're getting a brand new IPM, brand new MG ECU. This is your current sensor right here. You're gonna get a brand new one of those. See, it has the current sensors that kind of monitors the voltage coming from those pins. That's how you can tell. So that's your current sensor right there. And right now I'm just removing little connectors going into the MG ECU. Some are going into the transistor at the bottom. And it's amazing what we can do with just a few copper wires, a circuit board, a few transistors, resistors. Like, I'm no computer engineer, guys, so it may look a little bit complex and challenging, but if you just do what the repair manual says, this is your MG ECU. Just a circuit board on the inside. Yeah, it just looks intimidating, but if you just do what the repair manual asks you to do, then you don't have to worry. And this is your IPM. That's your 2 inlet hoses right there for the coolant that you saw us removing. And this is the base of your inverter. So we got your MG ECU right here, your computer for your motor generators. And then we have your current sensors to kind of monitor and see what current is being output. And you have your IPM. And we have the base of the inverter. So before I do anything else, I'm going to just clean the sealant off the inverter case. Right now, I'm just going around removing the big chunks with my hand before I get my die grinder and really go in there. Now, when doing this, some guys, man, they try to shave an inch off the aluminum. You want to be very easy. It's not sealing anything with high pressure. So you don't want to go aggressive. Just light little scuffing around the surface to kind of get the old sealant off. And if you use the die grinder before and you're pretty comfortable with it, then you don't have to worry about getting debris everywhere. Normally, I would put a cloth over those terminals you see, but I'm going to blow it off anyway. But if you're going nice and easy, then you don't have to worry about too many of the sealant shaving going off everywhere and getting inside the inverter. It'll be minimized if you really have good control over your die grinder. So now I'm going to take the upper case, do the same thing. Remove the majority of the big chunks of sealant off first because I don't want them flaking everywhere with my die grinder. I'm going to do the same thing, light little pass through. I just want to scuff it up. I see some guys go crazy. They try to make that thing shiny and they end up taking about an inch off. You don't want to be that guy. Like a light little scruff just to let the sealant stick. As you can see, when we open it up, it's not like there's water in there. It's high pressure liquid or fluid. It's really just to keep moisture out. So there's no coolant going in there. And of course, you want to blow it off. Make sure all the small little shavings you may have missed are off completely. And now this is the fun part. Now we're gonna clean off the old thermal grease from the base because we're gonna need to apply a new one. Before we put our new IPM, we want this area right here to be coated with thermal grease. This is your new IPM right here. Right from the box, here's a template of where they want you to put the thermal grease. Keep it in a sealed bag to prevent moisture from getting inside during shipping. And this is where we're gonna want our thermal grease to make contact with. And it's nice, they sent us this nice little template. We can just apply and then get our thermal grease out. They sent us two. And as you guys know, if you guys are into rebuilding computers, these thermal grease are not cheap. Each tube is gonna run you about 83 bucks for one of those little small tubes. They are not cheap, so that's 83 bucks right there. Second tube for 83 bucks. Going on the other side. So it's a specialized grease to kind of help transfer heat where it absorbs heat. So it keeps the base of the inverter nice and cool. And it'll make sense in a little bit once I put the IPM down. So all I'm doing is just smearing the thermal grease down on this template. And you'll see once I remove the template, it will have it at a specific spot where Toyota wants it. Like I said, I'm no computer engineer. I don't argue with them. I don't make up my own area where the thermal grease should be, applied. I just follow the repair procedure and do what I'm told. Don't make up your own. Don't think it needs to be somewhere else. Just follow that template. And I'm just going to smear it all in there really good. Smear it. And then once I remove the template they provided, now you have an idea of how they want the thermal grease to lay down. And this you can discard. You won't need it no more. And we're going to lay our new IPM right on that base so it can make contact with that thermal grease. So as it gets hot, coolant passes through that IPM pipes, those two pipes you see on the end, and it helps absorb the heat and then, of course, gets cooled down again and the cycle repeats itself. So it's just a way of transferring heat adequately. I'm going to install our new MG ECU. And going back in, guys, is just as important because you don't want to leave anything loose. You don't want to forget to plug anything in because if you do, you're going to turn on the car and you're going to try to ready it on. It's going to give you some kind of warning message. So just be very observant. Take your time. You don't want to rush. You don't want to do this while watching ESPN. You want to be focused. You don't want your other technician neighbor bothering you. You just want to really be focused. Right here, I just have the camera on a tripod, just recording. Like I said, this is where you want to be observant and remember what terminals already had their bolts in. Like I said, when you put the upper case back on, some of these won't be accessible. So you want to make sure you already have the bolts there. So I usually go in with my electric impact and then I finish it off by hand to make sure they're nice and tight. I'm going to install my current sensors on there. If I was making an in-depth video on how to do this, I would let you guys see exactly what I'm doing, what connectors I'm routing, and what I'm plugging in. But this is, like I said, this is just for demonstration purposes only. So yeah, if you have one of these Prius out there, don't be afraid. If you have a check hybrid system warning message coming on and it won't ready on, don't be hesitant to bring it into the dealer. It might be your lucky day because if it has one of these DTCs in there, 20 years, no mileage limitation. I'm going to install my other 10mm bolts going on the other side. And once you do these for a while, it becomes, second nature. It's not really too difficult. Some guys are intimidated by it, but after you do a few of them, it's actually really pretty easy. You don't really get messy. Now we're going to apply our sealant. This is a sealant specially made for coolant. But as you can see, there's no coolant going around inside the case. Coolant flows through that pipe that you see towards the right corner, and it flows out through the other pipe. This is really to keep the case sealed from moisture. So if the customer decides to degrease their engine bay for whatever reason, there's always one. No water gets inside the IPM. And we have our nice little bolt guide to kind of help us align the inverter case to help reassembly going smoother. Remove our little guide pins, and now I can start reinstalling my 10mm bolts for the case. Don't forget these 10mm bolts. Check them by hand. I always go in with an impact and then always get a feel by hand. Sometimes the impact doesn't really let you know if things are tight. You'll just hear ratcheting. Now I'm going to install my grommet, like a little coolant grommet for that pipe. I'm going to use my 3/8 extension to kind of hammer it in. And it's a nice little snug fit, so nothing will get in there, no water or debris. My MG ECU connector cover. Make sure the gasket is seated in the slot correctly. That's where your connector is going to be connected to that MG ECU you saw. Now I'm going to put a little bit of sealant around these little cover that you saw us prying off earlier. With the kit, repair kit, it comes with new ones because they know once you try to remove them, they break. So I'm going to put a little sealant so that it sticks. Like I said, keeps moisture out. And that's pretty much it. Now we're getting ready to reinstall the inverter back in the car. And so from here, guys, it's just the reverse order of removal. So whatever in the beginning I did, I'm just gonna do it in reverse. I'm gonna install my 4 bolts that holds on the inverter to the body of the car. And then from here, I'm just reinstalling everything. My high voltage cable, this one for the compressor. A 10mm nut that was back there, I'm gonna put that one back. My hybrid battery cable, MG ECU, my MG1 and MG2 cables. That's the ones on the right there, those two. I'm gonna install them back. Like I said, always get a feel for them by hand. Don't trust your impact, because if you leave them loose, you can create a spark. Spark leads to fire, and fire leads to lawsuit. You don't want that. Bring your cover back on. Like I said, Toyota wants you to be a hybrid expert to tackle on this job anyway, so they do not endorse you trying this at home. I'm gonna install my covers, and my wire connectors, my MG ECU connector right there on the side there. You see me installing. That's what goes to your MG ECU. And then the inverter is pretty much all set. That's all there is to it. Got one more little wire bracket and ground. Now you see our inverter coolant reservoir is empty. I have a separate video on how to bleed it. So if you guys are interested in how to bleed the inverter coolant, check out my other video on my page and you guys will get a detailed explanation on how to do it. And of course, because we drained it out, it's going to be empty. So I'm going to top it off with some coolant right here. And right here at this point, I'm pretty much done with the job, guys. There's really nothing else left to it. I'm going to reconnect my high voltage service plug. Reconnect my 12-volt battery. Then clear all my DTCs from the computer. Then we're just going to see if the car ready's on. Step on the brake, hit the power button. All right, cross your fingers up. Look at that. Now the vehicle ready's on. Customers still got an oil maintenance required, but they're not worried about that. They just want the free repair done. And that's all there is to it, guys. If you guys find this video informative, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. As always, thanks for watching.